The United States and China have wrapped up 2 days of high-level economic talks without any agreement. The US said it had taken a very big step towards addressing its more than $347 billion trade deficit with China. It demanded broader access to Chinese markets, yet no concrete measures were reached. The US also accused China of flooding the global market with its cheap steel. Analysts expect the Trump administration's threats to impose tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminium could come into effect within days. The Chinese have urged the US, meanwhile, to remove its strict regulations on selling high-technology products to China. And in the meantime, China has agreed to remove the ban on American beef imports. Now, one of President Trump's campaign promises was to get tough on China. He accused it of robbing millions of American jobs. But in less than a year, his tone has softened.
Because we can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. It's the greatest theft in the history of the world.
Trade is, as you know, a very, very big issue for the United States now, because over the years, and it's really been over a long period of time, many things have happened that have led to trade imbalances, and we're going to turn that around. And I know that with China in particular, which is a great trading partner, we will be able to do something that will be equitable and reciprocal.
But despite that shift, the US and China appear to be as far apart on trade as ever. Let's get more on this now with Martin Jacques, who joins me live from London. He's the author of When China Rules the World. Martin, thank you ever so much for being on Money Talks. Welcome back to the show. A bit of background, if I may ask you, for how important is the US-China trade relationship to the global economy?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I mean, after all, these are the two largest economies in the world by a very large margin, and they are each other's biggest trading partners. So if the relationship goes wrong, then the consequences could be extremely serious, even bordering on the grave for the global economy.
So after this meeting, when Trump was asked apparently whether he would impose steel tariffs on China, he said could happen. What would be the effect if he did that? How would China respond, do you think?
Well, I think it depends exactly what he does, how much he does. I mean, I think initially, if it's relatively modest, I think the Chinese will respond. I expect the Chinese to respond in kind. But it may be, at least initially, on a relatively small tit-for-tat scale. And that has happened in the past. So that isn't necessarily the beginning of a big downward spiral. But you know, it's been very, very difficult to predict what's going to happen in this relationship. To be honest with you, I was pretty pessimistic when Trump was elected, and I'm still a bit anxious about it, the relationship, because you know, of course, Trump has, you know, he's very unpredictable, so no one really knows what he's going to do, and he talked, as your clip showed, you know, very powerfully and aggressively against China, and he hasn't really followed through on that so far, but he might.
Martin, you've been covering China for many, many years now. Do you recall a time when the relationship was ever this bad?
I don't think at the moment I would describe the relationship as bad. I think that since earlier in the year, when they had the discussion in Florida and so on, the relationship has been relatively, a demonstration of the continuity which has underpinned the relationship now for quite a long time. I mean, you know, for decades. It hasn't gone off the edge like it might have done. And Trump still talks on Korea or on trade as if somehow, you know, it's going to be possible to have a relationship and find a way. So at the moment, I don't think we should talk as if, you know, the relationship is has already deteriorated seriously, but it might.
Indeed. Martin Jacques, I'm afraid we're out of time. We're going to pick this up again in the future, I'm sure. Martin Jacques, author, thank you so much.